3 a.m., seen on the side of the roadway. You got excessive tint on the windows, asleep at the wheel, you've got evidence of a crash, and you're blocking traffic at 3 a.m. Okay, that's enough to just get you arrested right there. The officer then saw his mouth full of white powder. You know, what the this is what you call a substance abuse problem. So let's hear what he has to say about the drug test.
I look at it, I'm like, well, all of a sudden, now y'all want to put this shit as a random. I missed the drug test. Nobody notified me. Where nobody notified me.
So who can argue with that? He needs to quit doing drugs. But he's so reckless, and it's like you're either in jail or you're dead. And that's what I see all the time with drugs, you know.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your very own personal board-certified criminal defense lawyer. Today, we are doing a rapper edition. We're talking about Kodak Black. We're going to highlight he got busted for cocaine and some other things, and the way he got busted was just sad, honestly. And then kind of highlight his criminal history and what does it all mean. But before we do that, this is brought to you by eSign.com. eSign.com, a very effective way to remotely do business. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you're on your 10th or 12th or 15th criminal offense, and you need a lawyer fast. But you can't go anywhere because you got warrants all over the place because you failed a drug test or failed to go to a drug test. Well, you're going to have to go back to your lawyer, and he's downloaded the app. He's got to get 3 free signatures a month. Sign at eSign, because eSign a retainer is easier than being there. I use it all the time. eSign.com is a very effective way to remotely do business. So let's talk about Kodak Black here. Kodak Black was caught swallowing a mouthful of cocaine during an arrest. It never ceases to amaze me how people are unmindful of their presence on the street. If you're rolling, you shouldn't be rolling dirty. And if you're rolling dirty, you shouldn't be causing attention to yourself. Because guess what? It's very easy to get stopped by the police when you're sitting in the middle of a fucking road and you're passed out. So Kodak Black, according to police reports, was caught swallowing a mouthful of cocaine during a traffic stop, which led to his arrest on drug charges. It was 3 a.m. First of all, what do I tell you? What do I fucking tell you? I tell you nothing good happens after midnight. Do you have to go to the after party? If you have to go to the after party, have it at your place. But do it at a place where a woman's not going to call the cops on you, or the neighbors aren't going to call the cops on you. So it was 3 a.m. in the morning in Plantation, Florida, and officers reported that his black 2019 Bentley SUV was parked with its taillights on, blocking part of the road. And when the officers approached, the window was halfway down, and he was asleep inside, blocking traffic. That's what you call probable cause to stop somebody. First of all, you don't need probable cause. You need just reasonable, articulable suspicion that a crime was committed and that he committed it. And somebody, 3 a.m., in the middle of the road, in a Bentley, asleep, with your brake lights on, is cause to at least investigate and see it could be a medical. It could be a well check. The police did report a smell of burnt weed. Actually, speaking of burnt weed, we had a new case that came out. The smell of marijuana is not necessarily enough to expand the search of a car. But that's another issue for another day. They smelled burnt weed coming from the vehicle, as well as weed residue inside the console, so they see weed residue. A styrofoam cup included an alcoholic beverage was also present, so we got a rolling party. When asked if there were any weapons or anything illegal in the SUV, Kodak said, just weed. When he went to go run his information, the cop noticed that white powder falling from the wrapper. The officer then saw his mouth full of white powder. What the fuck? This is what you call a substance abuse problem. The substance was tested and confirmed to be cocaine, despite the fact that Kodak claiming it was Percocet. I don't think it really matters if it was fucking Percocet. Don't use the perks, man. I'm good. I got a back problem. Additionally, when the officers searched the wrapper, they found clear baggie with a small amount of substance left in his pocket. Officers added that the Kodak's Bentley had visible passenger side bumper and door damage, which may have involved in a crash. The vehicle's exterior and interior, as well as the narcotics found, were photographed for evidence. Blah, blah, blah. Let's kind of recap of this 3 a.m. scene on the side of the roadway. You got excessive tint on the windows, asleep at the wheel, you've got evidence of a crash, and you're blocking traffic at 3 a.m. Okay, that's enough to just get you arrested right there. Then you inside the vehicle, you've got drugs, and I don't see anything that there was a weapon, and thank God there wasn't a weapon because that could be bad. But the problem also is the fact that he was on federal paper at the time, on what they call supervised release. And when you're on supervised release, you're not, number one, you probably aren't supposed to be out at 3 a.m. Number two, you're probably not supposed to be doing perks or cocaine. He did receive an additional charge of probation violation related to the federal case, which was also included in the report. Now, let's just back up a little bit. So he's on federal paper. He gets busted with cocaine and perks or whatever he's got. And so where does he go from here? He was released on $5,000 bail. But it's clearly, I mean, he's only 26 years old. 26 years old. Let's should we go through his criminal history a little bit? Because that's going to frame where this case is going. Because he's now charged with possession of cocaine, tampering with physical evidence, in other words, trying to eat it, and improper stop, stand, or park. Well, who cares about that? So in 2015, he was arrested for kidnapping, battery, and other charges. While that was pending, he got arrested for a marijuana possession charge. In 2016, he got arrested for sexual battery from a woman reportedly accompanied him to a hotel after a show at Treasure City. In 2016, arrest for weapons charges. So it doesn't sound like he had any weapons on him. But, when you have a felony and you're riding dirty, the riding dirty we can deal with, the guns we can't deal with, because there are hard minimums on a gun charge. So if you're going to be riding dirty, don't do anything you need to do to be armed. Why would you be armed? You could have a buddy be armed, or hire a security guard, or just fucking stay home. So 2016, arrest for weapons possession. He owned a Glock, and they arrested him for weapons possession by a convicted felon and marijuana. In 2016, arrest in Broward County, again, open warrants, charges of false imprisonment. At least he's creative. While he was in jail for the arrest and the outstanding warrants for the criminal sexual misconduct case in Florence, the other arrests were brought to light, and then that kind of inhibited his release from jail. So 3 months after that, in August 2016, he was sentenced to a year of house arrest and 5 years probation. So that means he'd be on probation until 2021, right? A month later, in September, he pleads no contest to a possession case that was sentenced to 120 days. And so he did that 120 days in 2016, but then in November, he was released. But guess what? He couldn't just go. He had to get extradited to deal with the sexual assault charge in South Carolina. While that was pending, he bailed out on $100,000, in South Carolina, and in 2017, he violated his conditions of release. In May 2017, angry outburst, sentencing at the House violation. April 21, accused of grabbing his anger management counselor by the arm after she threatened to call 911 when he refused to leave a session. Okay, so you say I got anger problems? Fuck you! What the hell? I mean, Your Honor, I've said this before. Your Honor, I cannot, in good conscience, place my client in anger management. Well, why not, Mr. Rivers? Because it'll piss him off. 5 days later, he was found guilty on 5 counts of violating his house arrest. May 4th, he was sentenced to 364 days in prison with possibility of early release if he completed a life skills course. All we got to do is just get him a little education, life skills. January 2018, arrested for weapons and drug possession and child neglect. Don't like the child neglect, but the weapons and drug possession, that sounds like a party. Arrested for grand theft of a firearm and 2 charges of possession of weapons and ammo by a Florida delinquent adult. 2018, sentenced January for arrest. Did a year in prison for the remaining charges stemming from his January arrest. Got credit for 90 days, blah, blah, blah. May 2019, arrest for weapons possession. When you have multiple convictions, multiple felonies, weapons are your kryptonite. You cannot possess a firearm. There are hard mandatory minimums. Kodak Black and 3 others were apprehended by U.S. Customs and Border agents while trying to cross into Canada. Okay, moron, your bus is leaving. You can't go into Canada with a firearm. First of all, you really can't go into Canada if you got a felony. You think a guy looking like that and with his record is going to be able to get into Canada without being searched? Not going to happen. Step ones are the most comfortable underwear I've ever made. They're high performance, and you can go about your day and you don't even know you're wearing them. And they're made from a viscose fabric that's derived from organic bamboo. Let's start there. And then they also have these panels that are non-sweat, no shave panels. For a limited time, if you put in Bruce Rivers as you check out, you'll get 25% off. Nobody else gets that deal. And ladies, you get some of these for your guy, he's going to absolutely love these. And it's a risk-free proposition because if after 30 days, if you don't like them, you can return them. Excellent Christmas present, especially if you have a stocking and you just fill it jam-packed full of step one. Your guy will love you. So step one, get some. So he paid $20,000 to $40,000 bond and then walked out of the jail with a fan of cash covering his face. Then less than a month later, he was arrested on weapons charges in Miami. What the hell? Why not? You know, I'm not going to be without my guns. Just before he was set to take the stage at a hip-hop music festival in Rolling Loud, he was apprehended by U.S. Marshals for state and federal firearms violations following what an extensive investigation. Here's the problem that he's going to get going forward. You get enough of these, you know, and all of a sudden you get on federal paper, and you get another federal offense, and they can do what they call an 851. An 851 is kind of a career criminal kind of deal where you get higher mandatory minimums for various crimes. I mean, it's not a career criminal, but it is kind of like that. Anyway, 2019, federal sentencing. Kodak Black pleaded guilty to the federal weapons charge, admitting to giving false information in connection with the January 2019 gun purchase. So you can't lie on a gun application. I don't know what he put down, but that he didn't have any criminal history. I mean, how easy is that to fucking check? I mean, really. And he was sentenced to 3 years and 10 months. Behind bars, he had heated confrontations with guards at the high-security prison in Big Sandy in Kentucky, which prompted him to file a lawsuit that accused the prison staff of beating him and restraining him for hours with no access to the bathroom. I've had that happen to somebody, actually. His third album, Bill Israel, was released in November 2020 while he was still incarcerated. So good, he's able to make money while he's in jail. January 21, Trump sets Kodak Black free. You know, there are people that you'd want to pardon. Generally, you would probably pardon somebody without a lengthy criminal history, but who cares? I like pardons no matter who gets them. So Trump pardons him, then he drops the lawsuit. However, while Trump's grant of clemency was a welcome relief for the rapper, it did not shield him from the sexual assault charge pending against him in South Carolina, so he had to go back and deal with that. He eventually settled that case for a suspended 10-year sentence, according to court records, and was placed on 18 months of probation and served no additional time. Sometimes they do that to avoid a trial, you know, because when you have a sexual assault case, if somebody's been sexually assaulted, it's traumatic for them to go through a trial. But in this case, they struck a deal, a very lenient deal, actually. I apologize this happened, and I'm hopeful we can all move forward, so said Kodak Black. He later posted a message on social media about the resolution of the case, saying, I ain't have to come off no money. So, I don't exactly know what that means, other than maybe I didn't have to pay for a lawyer to try the case. I don't know. But in January 22, he was arrested on New Year's Day in Pompano Beach on a trespassing charge. Officers claimed in a police report that Kodak had been at a housing complex despite having been banned from the property by the Housing Authority of Pompano Beach. However, in February 2022, he was shot in the leg in West Hollywood, California after a fight involving members of his entourage that broke out at a restaurant where Justin Bieber was having an after party. And then he was arrested in July of 2022. He was pulled over in Broward County after an officer ran the plates, found its registration was expired, and according to the report, they smelled... What did they smell? What do you think they smelled? Marijuana. They found a strong odor of marijuana and decided to search the vehicle, at which point they found 31 oxycodone pills and more than $74,000 in cash. And he said it was prescribed for his pain relief. So his lawyer said he has provided Broward County state attorneys with the evidence of the prescription that he is moving to quickly resolve the charges, which include trafficking oxycodone and illegal possession of a controlled substance. We're going to tell you what he thinks about different types of pills in a second. And in February 2023, in the Broward County pill case, Kodak allegedly violated his bail terms by failing to show up for a drug test. You know, we always like to give everybody their due, so let's hear what he has to say about the drug test.
Well, when I look at it, I'm like, well, all of a sudden, now y'all want to put this shit as a random. I missed a drug test. When nobody notified me. And where nobody notified me, nobody ain't hit my lawyer, nobody ain't hit me, nobody sent no emails and put no hazard alert like he need to come, tell him come, and none of that shit.
So who can argue with that? Honestly, I mean, I don't know where or how this was filmed. If you look here, look at the evolution of his face over the last several years. Look at that very first photo. Looks like a decent young man. He's got very little, if any, face tats. And if you look at the evolution of him, it just looks like he's been through the mill with drugs. It just looks like he's been through the mill with drugs. And, you know, and that appears to be the common denominator in every single one of his brushes with law enforcement. Let's take a look at the explanation of Super Gremlin, which will kind of explain a little bit of what his mindset is.
Let's talk about Super Gremlin.
Yeah.
What made you name it that, and what made you make that record?
I ain't gonna lie, I was in the studio and I was just going off, right? And then like the first bar that came to my mind, like when it came to that part, I knew perfect fake, but I still ate it because I'm gremlin. I really ain't want to say that shit, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like that was the first thing that came to mind.
You didn't want to say gremlin?
I ain't want to say I knew the perk was fake, but I still ate it because I'm a gremlin. But that shit was just hard as shit though. I just knew that bitch what that bitch was gonna do. You know what I'm saying? But I ain't want to say that shit though. I ain't want to say that shit.
We call that self-snitching a little bit though. Because if he knows the perk is fake, then we know it is what? Probably fentanyl, right?
Cause my dog Sosa and shit, he be telling me like, fam, like, motherfucker look up to you ass, like, I'm saying, come on, like, you up around, what you call it, and that motherfucker gonna
do that shit.
The chances I get even like performing that whole shit, like I start the mic and basically on shit, like, man, fam, like I ain't on that bullshit, like, please don't take that, yeah, try to like do no shit like that.
Essentially, what he's saying is, you know, one of his buddies is telling him that as he's performing these songs, he's sort of making it sound like it's cool to take fentanyl pills. And these kids look up to him. And they do, you know? And so you create a culture where it's okay to, you know, and these fentanyl, let me tell you this, fentanyl is killing people all over the country. All over the fucking country. I have a lot of those cases right now as I speak. And, you know, and he basically is saying he'll stop sometimes and just say, don't do that. Well, how about cut it off at the beginning and sing about something else? It's like maybe he could push some positivity. And you heard him say that, you know, he didn't even like the lyrics, but it was hard. You know, it resonated with him. Or anyway, he needs to quit doing fucking drugs. I mean, you're gonna wind up one day seeing that Kodak Black overdosed. You know, and I hate to say that. I hate to even say that. But he's so reckless, and it's like you're either in jail or you're dead. And that's what I see all the time with drugs. You know, people become reckless, people become violent, people can become self-destructive. And we saw it in my last video when we talked about Hunter Biden. You know, I mean, it is just such a cycle of, you know, yeah, it takes my health. Yeah, it takes my money. Yeah, it's going to take my freedom. But goddamn it, I got to have more of it, you know? And people just... You know, if you know somebody that needs some help, get them some fucking help. And like I said, sometimes law enforcement interactions will save lives. And they really can, because it'll make you change. Otherwise, you have to sit. And if you're sitting in a jail cell, guess what you're not doing? You're probably not doing drugs. Are there drugs in jails and prisons? Of course there are. But not like there are on the outside. So this has just been our little update on Kodak Black getting arrested for cocaine again. And you know, he's got so much criminal history. We just detailed it all for you. And at some point, you got to be tired of dealing with this shit, you would think. So our heart goes out to Kodak Black. Let's hope you fucking get sober, man. and let's just because plenty a lot of people want to hear your bars. Focus on the music, not the drugs. See you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for Patreon, and we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Groups. These groups that are with each other. You know, you've got the King Von crowd, you got the Quando Rondo crowd, and the FBG Duck, the Little Dirk. You got these factions that are just shooting each other. You know, the Fulio, Young and Ace. Why? I mean, grow up. I hate to say it that plainly, but grow the fuck up. I done turn rappers to killers and bosses. I mean, I think this is gonna be. You might think it's art, but it certainly is self-snitching, if you ask me. It's basically an agreement between two or more people, and an act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Purchasing of the airline tickets is an act in furtherance of the conspiracy, taking a substantial step. You know, getting people out there and then having them do what they did. You're just as guilty of that crime as though you pulled the trigger yourself.
Bitch, I'm a D-boy, do it for T-Roy. I'm on you forever, that just wrote the V-Roy. I'm with the killers forever, the trenches just in me, the Grammys can't...
Killers in the trenches, the Grammys ain't gonna change me for nothing. But you know what will? Federal prison for the rest of your natural life. You're gonna get life without parole. How dumb do you have to be? I mean, why don't you go get a gift card or just get some cash and give them some... I mean, I'm not trying to tell you how to commit a conspiracy case, but hey, how dumb do you have to be? This is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Today we are joined by our content genius that you know as Michael Rivers. Say hello, Michael.
Hello, everybody.
So we're reacting today to a Lil Durk. Lil Durk's been indicted on a murder for hire plot. Breaking news. It's not so breaking because it happened last week, but there's some interesting tidbits about this, so we'll get into that. But before we get to that, let's honor our sponsor, eforms.com. Because guess what Lil Durk's going to need now? He's going to need a power of attorney because he ain't going to get out. He's in custody in federal court in L.A. So if you're in custody and you need power of attorney, tell your people to go to eforms.com and go get a power of attorney because it's easier to do that than have your lawyer be bothered with it because your lawyer's just going to charge you for it and that's expensive. So eforms.com, you can get a power of attorney, bill of sale, a rental agreement, whatever kind of legal form you need, go to eforms.com. Effective way to stay out of court or win when you get to court because the documents don't lie. And it's also a good way to avoid the high costs of a lawyer. All right, so according to Forbes magazine, rapper Lil Durk is in federal custody following his arrest last week on the murder for hire charges in connection with an alleged plot to target rapper Quando Rondo. And if you remember, in 2020, I believe, Quando Rondo was in a beef with King Von, and that's when that shooting happened, and 2 people died, and that King Von was one of them. Now, 2 years later, there was a shooting that killed Quando Rondo's cousin. It was aimed after him, but it's a murder for hire plot. So this is Lil Durk. 5 other people have been arrested and brought to federal court. Earlier Thursday, meaning yesterday, 5 men, was it October 29th? Yeah, so this was just 2 days ago. 5 men who the prosecutors alleged have ties to Lil Durk's Only the Family rap collective and were co-conspirators in the 2022 murder for hire plot were also arrested in Chicago and appeared at the Dirksen U.S. courthouse, and the Chicago Tribune reported. So here's what they did. They tied Lil Durk's credit cards to the flights that these guys... That didn't happen?
No. I'm just saying how stupid that is.
So they tied Lil Durk's credit cards to the flights that these guys took to go kill Quando Rondo and whoever else was in his wake. How dumb do you have to be? I mean, why don't you go get a gift card or just get some cash and give them some... I mean, I'm not trying to tell you how to commit a conspiracy case, but fucking A, how dumb do you have to be?
And one thing I'd like you to add is, like, how long was this predictable down the pipe? You know what I mean? I think since we started covering Lil Durk, you had little insights here and there from...
And let me just tell you this. This was not unpredictable. An affidavit filed in federal court based on the testimony of FBI agent Sarah Cochran states Lil Durk had placed a bounty on Quando Rondo's life, citing unnamed witnesses, and that flight tickets purchased to carry out the murder were made with credit cards linked to Lil Durk and the family, OTAF. The plot was hatched as a retaliation for the 2020 murder of Lil Durk's colleague and friend, rapper King Von, according to the affidavit. Lil Durk attempted to flee the United States. Why is that important? Well, risk of flight and danger to the public. Those are two things that you look at for bail. Think he's getting out? Fuck no. Why not? Because he tried to flee the United States prior to his arrest, according to the U.S. District Attorney's Office and the affidavit, which states he had 3 flights booked to Italy, Switzerland, and Dubai.
All of which have...
Yeah, they all have extradition treaties, but who cares? He didn't board any of the flights. Lil Durk is expected to be arraigned in Los Angeles in federal court in the coming weeks, and the court said in a statement. So, you know, when you really look at these guys, first let's talk about what this case is about. Let's take a look at a WJCL News.
Right now, the search is on for 3 people who police say shot at a Savannah rapper, killing a member of his entourage. It happened in Los Angeles and...
So we reacted to this about the time that this happened.
Fired, a fight taken to the streets, and this chaotic scene, the ending of a shooting that started in Los Angeles, California. Sheriff's deputies pulling out a man who had been shot in an SUV. Savannah rapper Quando Rondo, a passenger in that car.
Quando Rondo screaming because it's his cousin that's laying there dead.
Rapper Quando Rondo, a passenger in that car, frantic at the sight. It all started at this mobile gas station at 5:30 Friday evening.
All over what? All over what? There's nothing that could justify this. I mean, granted, it's to avenge a killing, but these beefs start over nothing, and then they just go on and on and on. And where does it end?
Do you mean?
PD says witnesses heard multiple gunshots, then watched a couple cars zoom off. 3 people in one car shot at this black Cadillac Escalade. It's unclear if those inside shot back.
Can I get some space, please?
It ended at Santa Monica Boulevard. Deputies found it peppered with bullet holes and a shattered window. One man inside, a member of Rondo's entourage, had been shot. The 23-year-old was taken to the hospital where he died. A scene left with remnants of the fight, shoes left in the street, doors.
Just stupid. I mean, guys, you're successful. You're driving an Escalade. I mean, you got money. You've got everything you need to be successful. But if the Grammys ain't going to change you, I don't know what will.
Do you mind if I add a little bit?
Yeah.
All right. So, and obviously after this, after Vaughn, after everything, so the initial beef started between him and Youngboy. And then all of these people are tangential to Youngboy, like Quando Rondo, these Baton Rouge sort of affiliates, Lil Tim, and stuff like that. It all happened over a girl, over India, his girl. And then ex post, like all these events that had happened after King Von dying, all the fan bases, when are you going to slide for Von? When are you going to slide for Von? You know? And it's like, for him to have that compulsory instinct to just execute something like this, regardless of what consequences might come down the pipe, I don't know, I think is absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, like, even with Youngboy, it's like he's not a stranger to this. I mean, like, he had a sweetheart deal, and what does he do?
It absolutely floors me. So Quando's response after this, and this is a good message, actually. We didn't get into the music industry to make it just to stay caught up in this street shit. We all have families and communities counting on us. True. It's time to leave that all behind. We've already lost so much, and it's so heavy on my heart to forgive anyone I had issues with in the past. It's all love from me, praying for everyone. Life goes on. You know, that is the first positive message I've seen in a long, long time. There was somebody else that came out after he got out of prison. I can't remember what the name of the guy was, but he came out with another rapper, came out with a good message. Dudes, you guys got to stop. You got to stop this killing. I mean, we're going to play this little clip here.
Yeah, there's a couple of different music clips after.
Bitch, I'm a D-boy, do it for T-Roy. I'm on you forever, that just wrote the V-Roy. I'm with the killers forever, the trenches just in me, the Grammys can't...
Killers in the trenches, the Grammys ain't going to change me for nothing. But you know what will? Federal prison for the rest of your natural life. You're going to get life without parole.
Oh, could you explain, like a murder for hire plot, if he's like a principal in that? So
on a murder, if it's a conspiracy case, basically.
Yeah.
And conspiracy to commit murder is basically an agreement between two or more people and an act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Purchasing of the airline tickets is an act in furtherance of the conspiracy, taking a substantial step, getting people out there and then having them do what they did. You're just as guilty of that crime as though you pulled the trigger yourself.
Especially that he's orchestrating everything.
I like the bitches who let me just offer them cash.
The bitches who let me just offer them cash. You never gonna ask me for nothing, never gonna switch. Only time I ever switch is a Glock with a motherfucking button.
Only time I'm gonna switch is with a Glock with a motherfucking button. Do you think they're gonna try to use this in his trial? Maybe. I don't know.
4 TF, only the following with 4 pockets full, but we keep it 100. That shit solid. I done took loss. I done turned robbers to killers and bosses.
I done turn rappers to killers and bosses. I mean, I think this is gonna be. You might think it's art, but it certainly is self-snitching, if you ask me.
That's what I put up.
So here's a direct song where Dirk. Go no auto, whatever that means. Let's listen to his words, because this is him talking specifically about the L.A. shooting. Why you bring your cousin around, you know he's a rat. And we got one or two more here. So this is at Little Dirk's 30th birthday, telling him to make a wish.
Hey, Smirk, make your wish, gang.
He said it already happened. What does he mean by that?
Oh, fuck. Talking about Doc. In that instance, he said that was his 30th birthday. He's like, make your wish. And remember, that was such a calculated hit on the Gold Coast, right outside of Dolce & Gabbana. 2 cars pull up. FBG Ducks, he had a aftermarket extended magazine. It jammed, and 2 cars pull up. 4 guys get out, all with some with Draco, some with whatever. It was a hit. It was an assassination attempt.
So where are we at? So that's what we got going on here with Lil Durk and all this crap. He's not being. This has nothing to do with FBG Duck's murder. But I wouldn't be surprised if people start talking. You got 5 people who are going to be in custody now. Guess what? The youngest, the littlest one, the most scared is going to talk. And guess what they do? They snitch.
There's one more I was trying to find. Oh, here it is. I found it. Okay, here. There you go. This is a short, so it's obviously.
Not one nigga outside his socks, he brag about it. Why you bring your cousin around? You know you're red, let's talk about it.
See, when you listen to this stuff, is it art? No, they're not. It's diss tracks. It's intentionally talking shit about somebody who died. And if you have anything that ties you anywhere close to this, they're going to use this in your case. They're just going to. And it's just self-snitching. And that's what we started this whole thing about, self-snitching. I just can't believe some of the dumb shit that they say and the dumb shit that they do. So
And the one little tidbit I'd like you to add is that even though he's not indicted now with the duck stuff, they're patient. This is a federal case. The feds are patient. The MUWAP and all those people that were indicted, you know.
So people have patterns and histories. First of all, there is no time limit, statute of limitations on murder. So the feds are patient. They are patient, and so are homicide detectives. You got 5 people who, along with Lil Durk, got hauled into custody. And you think they're going to sit around and protect his ass? No, they're not. I guarantee you they're not. And not all of them, anyway. And it won't take long before somebody cracks on the FBG Duck stuff. Because if, in fact, Lil Durk was responsible in any way for aiding, advising, counseling, conspiring, or otherwise procuring the homicide of FBG Duck, he's on the hook for the whole thing. And it seems to match, because remember, that was on the Gold Coast, and there were these young guys that were hired, and, you know, that case is still pending. And if you remember, in that case, all the guys in that case got life without parole.
Yes, 6 O-Block street gang members convicted in 2020. Let's see. Verdict. Let me see what the sentencing was. This is the article right here. I just sent you.
And that's okay. We don't need to go too far afield.
Yeah. No, well, this isn't too far afield.
Was that 2020?
When the murder happened?
No.
No, this article is posted January 17th, 2024. But the 2020 was the shooting.
Oh. After just 2 days of jury deliberation, federal jury on Wednesday convicted 6 reputed gang members of the brazen killing of Chicago rapper FBG Duck in the Gold Coast. They're all convicted. But here's the thing about federal court. They may not have cooperated then, but they could cooperate now and come back with what they call a Rule 35. And, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And I don't know that Lil Durk was part of that or not. Seems like he was, because he certainly talks about it in his rap songs. Like, he certainly isn't displeased by the fact that that happened. And these groups that are fucking with each other, you know, you've got the King Von crowd, you got the Quando Rondo crowd, and the FBG Duck, the Lil Durk. You got these factions that are just shooting each other. You know, the Fulio, the, you know, Young and Ace. Why? I mean, grow up. I hate to say it that plainly, but grow the fuck up. You know, I mean, I had a case today, a juvenile homicide. You know, these guys are just younger and younger and younger, carrying guns everywhere. You know, if you're a parent and you find a gun in your kid's room, you better be awfully fucking scared. Awfully scared. Because the kid, number one, is doing something really dangerous. And number two, if the kid feels like he has to protect himself, then there's more going on than you know about. So, I mean, FPG's mother is now suing Lil Durk, you know, after these other proceedings had concluded. You know, so it's just a mess. If you are a young man, 15, 16, 17, your hands should not touch a gun unless you're with your father at a gun range or at a skeet shooting range or hunting. You shouldn't be having a gun out on the street. First of all, it's illegal if you're under 18 to possess a firearm. I don't know if you know that or not. Second of all, it's just so fucking dangerous. The best defense is a good offense. Stay away from trouble, period. build your future, build your life, build everything. In fact, I want to read something to you, an email I got today. And so when I talk to you about building and being there for people, I got a message today from somebody by the name of Aaron. And this has just touched my heart. This is where your heads should be at. I'm sorry, no legal issue. I am just trying to show my gratitude. I want to be sure Bruce Rivers is able to see this. I am 44-year-old mother of 4, continuing my education because of him and his YouTube channel with his son, Michael. I am not sure the best way to express my appreciation. I am an older mother of 4. My husband is a great provider, but he works so hard as a disabled man who refuses to be labeled disabled, partially paralyzed. As we get older, we are realizing physically it is my turn. Bruce inspired me to start building. School always seemed so overwhelming, but somehow he expressed it in a way to make it feel attainable. Since then, I received my associates and am on my path to obtain my bachelor's. Because of his inspiration, I'm on a path to provide for 4 kids in case my sweet husband's paralysis completely removes him from the workforce. Thank you, Bruce. So let me tell you something about Aaron. That's strength. You know, I got into law school fucking barely. My grades were shit. I didn't have a good work ethic. You know, if I didn't really like the subject matter, I didn't really try that hard. And but once I got into law school, I really liked it. If you are sitting there thinking, oh, I'm in the city, I don't have a dad, I don't have, you know, a good upbringing, I'm not very smart, you know, bullshit. You know, I saw an interview with Morgan Freeman.
They say, oh, there you go with a pull yourself up by the bootstraps thing, and, you know, you're just being respectable. Not everybody can do that.
Well, everybody can. Everybody doesn't. Courage is the key to life itself. There are a lot of people who are born in situations where they say, well, I'll never get out of this. So they won't. I say to people who say, well, I would like to have done so and so and so. So, well, you could have done it. So, well, I couldn't get out of here. Man, the bus runs every day.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
It's Don Lemon on CNN. And he was saying, well, what about, you know, the people who just can't do this or just can't do that because of their upbringing or their circumstances? And you know what Morgan Freeman said? Bullshit. And that was absolutely right. Anybody can do anything that they want to do. Now, does that mean I can be president if I want to? No, I've got too many skeletons in my closet. You guys point that out every fucking day. But does it mean you can be successful? It absolutely means you can be successful. You don't have to be a banger. You don't have to carry a gun. You can avoid situations. You can do this. You can do that. And if you're young and you know and you're in a tough situation, find a way. Find a mentor. Find an adult male. If you're a young black male, find an older black male who's successful. And it can even be somebody that's been to prison that says, don't follow my fucking path. You know, do whatever you got to do to be the man you are meant to be. Because there's no other way. Do you want to go to jail? You want to go home. You want to go to the morgue? You want to go home. You want to have a nice car? You have a nice boat? Do you want to have the trappings of a good life? You want to have a good woman? You want to have the people around you respect you for you and not for your banging ways? That's where it's at. These guys doing this shit, this shootings, I mean, it is just so ridiculous. I call on every one of you rappers to get peaceful, And that's you, Drake. That's you, Kendrick Lamar. You know, that's you, Lil Durk, although your fate is now sealed, I think. The feds don't charge you unless they can convict you. They get like a 96% conviction rate. Anybody out there, listen to me. Preserve yourself. Be there for the people that need you. These young guys need us. They just need us. So we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Best way to spread the message is what, Michael?
You go to CLRBruceRivers.com, get yourself a hat, get yourself any sort of thing on there to spread the message of positivity.
Almost like we just rehearsed that, but we didn't. So we'll see you next time in Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you say, hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. And today we're just going to give you a case update. Going to give you a little bit of an update on the George Floyd situation. And we're going to talk a little bit about NBA Young Boy. And Mr. Young Boy, or otherwise known as Kentrell Golden, was picked up in Los Angeles for weapons violations and out of an arrest and charges that stem from an incident that happened in September of 2020. He and about 15 others were picked up for weapons possession and some other charges. And the reason they got picked up is because some of the guns that they were using were stolen, and he has a felon in possession charge. What happened was he was in Los Angeles, and his lawyers were in contact with the U.S. Attorney, I believe in Baton Rouge. And these charges from September of 2020 have been kind of hanging out there for a while. And no doubt his lawyers had communicated to the U.S. Attorney's Office, we're here, if you got charges, he'll turn himself in, that kind of thing. But in typical U.S. Marshal and federal government fashion, or fascist, they picked him up on the street in Los Angeles instead of calling his lawyer to de-escalate things. That's just how they like to do it. Sometimes when people get charged with crimes federally, the federal government likes to have it under seal so you don't know it's coming. And so they issue a warrant and they pluck you off the street or out of your bed or wherever. And they do that so that so you're caught by surprise. And then amazingly, they have a really lovely press conference. We got him. And that doesn't really work if the guy turns himself in. You can't have a splashy press conference if that happens. So that's what happened with the rapper NBA Youngboy. Now, here's the thing. He's got, this poor kid, his dad went to prison when he was young for 55 years. So his dad's out of there, not in his life. And in 2016, he got an aggravated firearms charge. So this would be his second, at least his second, if not third, federal firearms type violation. What that means is if he's got 3 prior felonies, which I don't know that he does, but because it was unclear from me doing the research whether he has 2 or 3 or exactly how many prior felonies. But if he has 3 prior violent felonies, even if they're juvenile, depending upon the timing of them, he could be looking at a mandatory minimum 15 years in prison. And if he somehow miraculously gets out on bail or other conditions, which I don't think he's going to, that really tells me a lot. That tells me he's probably cooperating, which I don't think is going to happen in this case. But in NBA Youngboy's future, at the very least, he's looking at a 5-year mandatory minimum. And because he took off in L.A., when they tried to arrest him, he took off on foot. He very well could be looking at an extra 2 points for obstruction of justice. So, and in the federal system, they have different enhancements or points that you can get for various things, like for kind of the role that you played in an offense, if you're the leader or organizer. If you have a firearm and it's not separately charged, you can get an enhancement for that. And if you take off from the cops and you create a scene where it's dangerous, which is what he did here, then you can wind up getting a 2-level enhancement for obstruction. Now, his lawyers criticized the federal government for the way they did things, and I don't blame him, because if you've hired a lawyer, and no doubt he paid them a lot of money, I know I've had different prosecutors extend me the courtesy, hey, look, we're going to pick him up, so you've got 24 hours to turn himself in. But they didn't do that in this case, and I really wish Mr. Golden wouldn't have taken off, because that kind of justifies why they did what they did. But in 2018, he had a weapons and kidnapping incident. In 2019, He was in a shootout in Miami. And I don't know how many or if any of these are going to be charged or if they were charged. I know he got a 10-year suspended sentence, and the judge discharged him from that sentence in, I think, December in order to the return of a lot of jewelry and cash. And that's probably because they couldn't tie it to any criminal activity, because he's a rapper and he's got some dough from his music. The thing I'd like to talk about, though, is the culture that, this case could have been avoided. And it is exactly what I've been talking about in all of my videos about the brazen nature of these rap videos. And I'm not sitting here preaching, okay? I don't want bad things to happen to any of these guys. But when you are not supposed to possess firearms because you're a felon, and all of a sudden you take a video of yourself, look at me, look at these. When you do that, you give the government the evidence they need to convict you. And you really shouldn't do that. The incident that happened in Baton Rouge in 2020 in September, they were shooting a video, and in the video they had all kinds of guns, and it turns out some of them were stolen. And they want to look cool, and they want to look like they're badass, and they want to look like this. But this is a 21-year-old young man. And when I say 21, 21 is young. And your frontal cortex, your brain, in the male brain, is not developed until you're about 24, 25 years old. You're impetuous. You make decisions for your future that you can't see how it's going to impact you. You don't put in the thought. And so for every young guy out there, I want you to think. I want you to think before you act. Had this guy done, and you're innocent until proven guilty, okay? We'll start right from there. So Mr. Goulden, or young boy, is innocent until proven guilty. Let's just say that outright. And his lawyer made the comment that he didn't possess any firearms. He never held a gun and never possessed any firearms on that particular day. Now, I haven't seen the video, and I don't think it's been released yet. But I do know that possession of a firearm can be actual or it can be constructive, and which means I can either have a gun in my pocket or it can be nearby. And it can be joint possession, where I can possess a firearm or anything with somebody, or it can be sole possession. So, and the issue for him then is whether he had access. Basically, sole possession is not necessary to prove that he was in possession of a firearm. So if they have him in any of the outtakes playing with the guns, that's possession. The other thing they need to prove is that that they were purchased or actually manufactured across state lines. And most Springfield Arms, that's Springfield, Ohio. That's usually, depending upon what kind of firearm, it's usually not hard to prove that they were transferred in interstate commerce. So what's really important here is I can't imagine he doesn't have a top-notch legal team. He's got to have one. And if he really wasn't in possession of any firearms and everybody around him had guns and those people had guns just for the video, he may be able to walk from this. But given the nature of his prior conduct, given the nature of everything that he's done to date, it's going to be a tough sell, because those prior convictions come in and then they're factored in when they determine a sentence. And if there are any other charges, the gun charge, it's called a 924C or a 922G, it would be consecutive to whatever other underlying charges there might be. So it'll be interesting. You know, I don't revel in the fact that this guy got picked up, that Mr. Gould. I don't at all. I'm a defense lawyer, and I don't like to see anybody spend any time in prison. But I also don't like to see young guys make mistakes, make bad decisions. And when you're in the gang culture, you got to be smart about what you do, especially. And he even said this himself when he got the attempted murder charges. When you're known, you know, he says, I don't really know if they target people, but when you're known, you have it harder. In other words, you're out there. You've got all kinds of social media out there, and you're doing that for your rap career, so you kind of have to do that. But if you let your guard down and you put all this content out there that shows you doing stuff, it's self-snitching. That's what it is, self-snitching. And that's what happened in this case. They got the video, and it's self-goddamn snitching. So he's looking at least 5 years, and hopefully not any more than that. And I don't think he's going to be getting out on bond anytime soon, especially in light of the fact that he tried to flee. So that's what I know about NBA Youngboy and the George Floyd situation. The jury has been selected. They're going to start opening statements on Monday. And here's how that works. An opening statement is an opportunity to address the jury and give the showcase of what you believe the evidence is going to be. It's not a time for argument. If you watch any kind of trial, if you watch the argument on Monday, you'll hear this a lot. The evidence will show. The evidence, we believe, is going to be. The issues in the Floyd trial come down to one issue, and that's really typical of a lot of cases. It'll come down to one thing and one thing alone: cause of death. If they can prove that Chauvin caused the death, I think that they're going to get a conviction. If there is a dispute as to what the cause of death was, whether it was the fentanyl or the knee, then I think the defense has a chance. So the state gets up and gives their opening. The defense can give an opening at that point, or they can reserve it for their case in chief. Generally, you want the jury to know what your case is about. And if you have an expert, which the defense does in this case, and the defense wants to showcase their expert right off the gate, because primacy is one of a psychological principle, is you kind of remember what you hear first. And that is what you want to do in this case. So you'll hear a lot of language about the evidence will show, or we believe the evidence is going to be, that kind of thing. So then after they do their opening statements, it's the state's burden, so they present their evidence. They present their witnesses, and then the defense cross-examines the witnesses. And then the defense, if they haven't given an opening, then they can give their opening at the beginning of their case, which I don't think he'll do. I think he'll give his opening right away. And then the defense will have their experts. And it's unclear to me whether Chauvin will testify. It's unclear to me whether Chauvin will testify or not. Generally, if you can keep your client off the stand, you do. And in this case, if you have an expert that's going to have a cause of death that is contrary to what the state is, which I assume that's going to happen, well, then your client really can't add anything to that, because that's outside of your client's expertise. And so you probably keep them off the stand. So, and then after you bring your evidence, then the state does their closing argument, the defense does their closing argument, and the state has one last chance to give a closing argument, or give a rebuttal argument rather, and then it goes to the jury. And then while the jury is deliberating, the defense usually makes a motion for a judgment of acquittal, saying that there wasn't enough evidence, and the judge 9 times out of 10 denies that motion, because you don't need much to get to a jury. So with that, we'll watch and see what happens with the Chauvin trial on Monday. I'll give periodic updates on Youngboy because I think this will be interesting to see what happens. It'll also be interesting to see if he's scared enough to cooperate. We all know what cooperate means, and we all know what I think of cooperation. So, this has been Bruce Rivers, Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. We're about to receive our second Patreon funding, and when we do that, I'll give you an update as to how, because we haven't spent any of that money yet, so because it's fairly low dollars right now, so it'll be about $500 when we get our next payment. And when we do, there's somebody we're going to bail out for $500. So just keep in tune. And I'm going to tell you about the person, but I'm not going to interview him. I don't want to put somebody on the spot like that, but I'll tell you about him, and I'll tell you how grateful they were. Okay? So thank you for supporting us, and let's get up to, let's say, 300,000 by the end of April.